Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Loveonaroll podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Mayerson, and I'm here again with my good friend Dan Brown. He's been on the audio podcast before, and he's got nuggets of wisdom. I'm telling you, it's gold. Anyway,
Well,
welcome to the podcast,
thank
Dan.
thank you for having me. It's good to be back. I think the last time I was on was before my surgery. A little bit uh, about me. I had squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue back in 2022, and I was on, I believe, right before my surgery. So that was a very, emotional time in my life, um, and I believe I was on in, I think it was July 2022 with you. And I told you I'd be back at that time, and it's just crazy that so much has happened since then, and for now I'm cancer free. I'm in remission, so that's good.
Oh, thank God, man. God is
Yeah,
good, and praying for you that it stays that way for sure.
yeah,
So, Dan, tell the people that don't know about you, about your story, and about just how we know each other, and just about your incredible journey that you've been blessed to have.
yeah. So I'm Dan. I'm 32 years old. I grew up in New York originally, so I was born in Lenox Hill Hospital, which is a hospital in Manhattan, New York. I was born 10 weeks premature, and because of that, I ended up having a brain hemorrhage, which resulted in me having mild cerebral palsy. So I can walk, but I walk with a pretty significant limp, and if I am walking, it's pretty obvious. And so that's kind of where me being on this podcast comes in is my having mild cerebral palsy and growing up with that. And because of the medical debt that I put, my parents into, they had to move to Florida. So I moved to Florida when I was 16. I finished high school there, and then I went to Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton for undergrad. And that's actually where I met Garrett. I was a resident assistant when I was a senior, and he was a sophomore, and he was a resident in the same building. And so we met each other that way, and we, bonded over our shared experiences and our love of entertainment, as well as some other stuff. And so that's really how we got to know each other, and we've been good friends ever since. And after undergrad, I went to medical school at UCLA School of Medicine, and then I went to family medicine residency, also in Southern California. And I got married, and I have two kids, a stepdaughter and a young son, 2 years old. And uh, yeah, now I'm a licensed family medicine physician. I just finished my residency in June, and I start my new position in September next month. So I'm very excited about that. Um, and so yeah, right now I'm still currently living in Southern California with my family, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well, we have a lot to cover, So buckle up, folks. It's gonna be, a, a great ride for sure. Anyway, so. You know, first of all, I wanted to say this is living proof, right? One of the reasons why I started Love on a Roll was the fact that people would tell me, I would ask, "Oh, are you dating anybody?" If they were in wheelchairs or whatever, they'd be like, "No, are you crazy? Like these girls are gonna think I'm a burden. Like, what would they want to do with me?" And a lot of people, myself included, I'm not innocent. I think we've all had this burden complex, but because of that, a lot of people like think that it's not possible. And I was fortunate that I met somebody when I was in high school who had a spinal cord injury, who kind of showed me the ropes and introduced me to people um, who live amazing lives, really. And they're married and they have kids and successful careers and lives. And so I knew that it was possible from a very early age, which a lot of people, um, I don't know, maybe not get to have the experience of that when you're in that situation where you have a disability. I don't know, but from my experience, I think that was very helpful. Um, Obviously, it was a slow and steady journey, but yeah, that's why I started Love on a Roll to really um, get that message out there. And Dan
Yeah.
is a perfect example of that, for sure. And I don't know, Dan. What do you think? Like some of the misconceptions are regarding people in wheelchairs or people with physical disabilities, and how can people overcome that?
Yeah, I think we were talking a little bit about this the other day, actually. I think, the biggest challenge is most people, when they see someone with a disability, they tend to, under, um, they, 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 they don't, um, they're gonna like assume they can do less than that's the right term for it, or the right phrase. Basically, you don't usually see people, assuming they can do more than they can do. You're going to see people doing, assuming they can do less, and I think that comes from, they don't want to over assume, and then everyone gets frustrated, and you're putting expectations on someone. I don't think it comes from a bad place. I think it actually comes from a good place. It's just frustrating to people like us who have a disability, and then um, we want to do more things, and we wish that people gave us more independence or gave us the benefit of the doubt in what we're able to do, and especially in dating, and especially being men. We kind of want to take charge and take some leadership just naturally, but it's tough to do that when you know basically people are assuming we can't do as much as we actually can, and it can definitely put a damper on things, just from our own confidence perspective. And so we've had to deal with those things before. And I would just say to people that are dating someone with a disability, just keep an open mind about things. If someone can't do something, they'll let you know. And if someone can do something, they will also probably let you know. And and it's tough to date someone with a disability if you're an able-bodied person. That is true, because it's not quite the same thing. There are limitations there, but I don't think that's the thing that is actually what a relationship is about. What a relationship truly is about is giving to the other person, and both parties should be giving to that person, and that only comes when you have two people together that are of high character. And so it doesn't really matter if the person's disabled or not, or able-bodied or not, because it just matters the person of high character. And so that's really who you should be going for. There's plenty of able-bodied people that are high character. There's plenty that are low character, and vice versa. But really, it really is about the person. As the cliche goes, what's on the inside. Um, and so I would just keep an open mind if you're thinking about dating someone with a disability. It doesn't mean they can't do certain things. It doesn't mean they can. Just because again, love is about giving, and I would try to go into that relationship or into that interaction trying to give as much as you can. And
Yeah,
person might surprise you. That's what I'll say there.
yep, that is definitely true. We were talking about this the other day, and there's also a comedian. His name is Insane Wayne. Yeah, Insane Wayne. I believe his name is. He was on America's Got Talent. Um, he's in a manual chair, but he's a um stand-up comedian, for lack of a better term, and he was doing a set, and he basically said that
So the sit down comedian, is that the term they probably used or he used?
well, yeah, sit down comedian. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That essentially, that's what it is. But man, he said something that I think is important to add to what you say. What you're saying is that don't let your blessing roll past you, because like literally what Dan helped me to realize over the years is everything that we have as somebody with a disability that we don't think like, well, it's common to think like, what value do you have as somebody with a disability? But we have a lot, and like he was on that with the stand up, said that he did. He was like, you get first of all you get disabled parking, handicap parking. Then you get like you can get a job because you can be our assistant in a way, so you can get paid from the government and stuff like that. And then I mean, there's lots of other, I mean, benefits. I mean, that we have to offer as a person, but just from that, I mean, there's benefits that I'm like, yeah, why who doesn't want handicap parking and who doesn't want a job
Well,
if
it's kind
if
of like every time for me when I go to the airport, they see me walking and they always let me skip the line right at the gate, and I just
yeah.
ought to get through, which is nice. I don't have to wait in that long line, and I just get to go through the security checkpoint. I don't have to wait just to get there, which is nice. And my daughter Madeline, she always comments. She's pretty precocious. She always comments how she loves going with me to the airport, specifically because of that. And it's like that Family Guy scene with Joe where he's talking about all the bad things of being in a wheelchair, and then he starts mentioning some good things like being, able to cut the lines at amusement parks and the airport, like I just mentioned, and all the good things that come with it. And then he pauses and he goes, "I guess it's not all bad," because it's not all bad. And speaking to a deeper point, being disabled was something that I used to really struggle with, especially as a little kid. I used to be really ashamed of it, um, and it would like almost choke me up. Like I'd want to cry when people would ask me questions about it when I was a little kid. But then as I got older, I got more comfortable with it, and then I realized more and more as I went through life that I wouldn't be this same person that I am today, and so now it brings me a sense of pride. Because you realize how much you had to overcome just to get to this very point. I mean, Garrett, you're an author now. You having your own podcast. You're a huge disability advocate. You're trying to make inroads in that industry. I actually got through medical school, and I'm a doctor now, and that took a lot to get here. But that just shows the type of people that we are, and it shows the resiliency that we had to have. And now I look back at me having a disability, and I think it made me into that resilient type of a person, because everything wasn't so easy for me growing up. And there were more obstacles than I would have had if I was able-bodied. But I was able to overcome that, and it gave me this kind of toughness where I was able to endure challenges when they came. And I'm okay with being told no, and trying to find a way to do it. You know, to figure out a way to do it with the abilities that I do have. I don't give up easy, and you don't either. And I think that's because of our disabilities. If I didn't have this disability, I don't know how resilient I would be, and I don't know how good of a person I would be either. I think being disabled also kind of, it humbles you in a way, but it makes you also, because you yourself are kind of seen a certain way in the world. um, you look deeper into others as well because you wish that's the way the world was. And I think because of that, it also made me a better person. um, I think it made my family better people as well. My mom, always says that it made her, gentler and more loving, just because, instead of worrying about, expectations for me as a kid, she was just worried about me being happy. And I don't know if similar things happened with your mom too, but that's kind of how it was. It's like, typically as parents, and my mom's Jewish. I come from a Jewish family, Jewish New Yorker family, very, very tough, and that's why they were willing to fight for me. But also, those types of cultures, they come with expectations for their children, and I think when you have a child with disability, you actually learn about, there are other things that are important in this world, more than just your children being as successful as possible. And my parents were just worried about me going at my own pace and being as happy as I could be, and being a child who was loved. And so I think that's where, when you look back at it, I'm I'm happy. that I've had to endure what I've had to endure. It's made me the person that I am, and I'm proud of the person that I am.
Yeah, man. I'm totally understand that perspective. For me, I definitely tell a lot of people that my discipline made me resilient, and you know, I continue to get this resilience, and I'm thankful for that, and blessed for that. But at the same time, I'm not gonna, you know, you got a little vulnerable, so I'll get a little, you know, personal here too. You know, I've struggled with my mental health as a result of my disability. It's not it hasn't been easy. I've had to go to therapy. I've had to overcome a lot of things, and I've been through a lot of things. More than I ever thought. I mean, literally, I think you can say this for your life too. But it's like when you have a disability, it's like a movie. Like you can't the stuff that happens to you, like you literally cannot make that up. I think, and for me, it was no share like of experiences where I'm like, you cannot make this up.
Yeah,
Um, I think, have you ever had this experience where you've gotten something in life and then all of a sudden um it gets um for some reason it doesn't work out, or it gets taken away for whatever reason, the opportunity, it's like, and I'm like, man, you have a funny sense of humor, God. It's like
yeah.
you
I think that happens a lot for anybody, whether they're disabled or not. But yeah, of course I have, and it stinks when that happens. But I think, like to my point earlier, you know, when you have that toughness and everything because of what we just had to endure, where other people they just had those opportunities. In general, I wasn't supposed to walk. That's actually what they told my parents. But like I joked before, they were stubborn Jewish New Yorkers, and they didn't take no for an answer, and they went to find somebody they thought could help me. And I had so many surgeries and physical therapists and specialists, and then I was able to walk and eventually play sports. And um, you know, that I just had to deal with things that other people haven't had to deal with, just like you have. And part of that was I didn't walk till I was 3. I really had to learn how to do that. It took extra time, but because of that, I had this resiliency where when something didn't quite work out for me, and going in medicine, that's kind of just the way it is in medicine too. Is being a doctor, it's hard. You're constantly like learning through failure, and you're just learning things on the fly a lot of times, and you're kind of operating in chaos. You're bringing a sense of order to chaos, and that's just the nature of the job as a physician, and just really in any healthcare space. And it's just, but having the cerebral palsy and knowing how to deal with those situations in any way, that helped me to deal in that job. Um, so, you know, again, obstacles all the time. There's been plenty of times where those things have happened, but, you know, I would always come back to, I've done this before and I could do it again. And so is what always kept me grounded and centered.
yeah, so that's a good point. So did that resiliency, did that mindset that you have, how did that carry you forward in your whole dating journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, similarly, just because of, um, I was very confident in certain things, but like I think I have this perspective on ego, that ego kind of comes out of a sense of insecurity. And so the person leans heavily into what they actually know they're good at. So they can kind of avoid, it's like a defense mechanism. They can kind of avoid what they're bad at. And so I knew growing up that I was very smart. I was very book smart. I could learn things very quickly. I was a very good student in school. Um, and I had this very gung ho personality, and so I was always, I kind of just threw myself into that. And I was always, and it's the same thing in college. I didn't date any girl because I was using the excuse of, well, I need to do well and get good grades and get all A's and do well on my MCAT and do all these extracurriculars so I can get into med school, right? But part of it was also because I think there was part of me that thought it's never going to happen for me because of my disability, or at the very least it's not going to happen now. Women aren't going to want to date me. And it was kind of like, so I was, really leaning heavily into the intelligence aspect and the doing well in my courses aspect, because I didn't believe I would have what it takes to do well in the dating aspect. And so I didn't even start dating until I was in med school. And, part of it was because at the end of college, I realized how bad I was with women. There was a girl that was really, really into me, and she made it very obvious that she was very into me. She was giving all the signals, and she was very beautiful. And so naturally, I was taken aback, and I started to pursue her, and then that got her like disinterested because I was pursuing you know too much. I was showing too much interest, and then it basically made it to where I looked desperate, and I looked needy, which doesn't look good in women's eyes from a man. And so basically I was humiliated by that, that I could, as they say, fumble the bag. Well, I fumbled the bag because I had the bag. She was the one that was really, showing interest in me first. And it just bothered me so much that I screwed up so badly that I fumbled the bag there, that I said, this isn't happening again. So I'm going to, do some reading. And, I started to, look into like dating coaches and, kind of understanding women better. And that brought me to guys like Corey Wayne, which we talk about, pretty significantly. And, that really helped me not only understand women, but understand myself, and, not only what I was doing wrong, but how to, embrace my masculinity, and how to just grow into being a man, and being a better adult. And so I didn't even date until medical school. Then I was in medical school, and I started dating, and I didn't have my first kiss till I was like 23. And, I was very late to meeting all those milestones. And it was really, now looking back, because now I'm married with two kids, you really do realize through hindsight being 2020 that it was all in my head. I would think in my head that girls wouldn't want me because of my disability. But now, being in a loving relationship, I know that it really doesn't make a difference because I'm a person of high character, and women of high character will like me. It really is just about, you should want to be with someone that is high character. Right now, I think our dating pool, as people with disabilities, is not going to be um, as large as people that are able-bodied, just because some people will be more shallow, or they just don't want to put up with the hardships of dating someone with a disability. And from my standpoint now, and I think from any standpoint, really, it's just hard when you're single. We need to look at it as that's actually a good thing, because you're not going to have to. Most people deal with the finding out about a person's true self and their character on the back end when they're dating them. But we actually have the privilege of, we weed them out on the front end, right? Because they don't want to date somebody with a disability. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they're not wasting our time. Now, it could make us lonelier and those sorts of things, which is a different challenge just because we don't have as many options. But the options that we do end up getting are much more high quality people, more so than not. If you were, able bodied, or you have, a mild disability like myself, some people you go out with, they're not going to be the, most morally upstanding person. And that's not a great thing. You want your long term partner to be somebody that is someone of high character. And, that's somebody like my wife now. She's a very, very good person. She's very understanding. She's very patient. And that's the type of person you want. And, luckily for us, we don't have to really waste our time with too many people like that. And so that's the good side of having the disability. But yeah, because of all those things and my confidence related to my disability, and then the smaller dating pool that just comes with having a disability, I did get a later start in life on reaching those romantic milestones than most people. But I ended up in the same place, so I don't think it matters, and I ended up with a good person.
Right, right, right. For sure. And I mean, you and me are not too far off in our journey. I mean, I didn't get my first kiss until I was 25. And
Yeah,
I don't think I lost my virginity until I was 20 26.
yeah.
So,
I I think yeah. I mean, I think I was like 26, 27. I don't exactly remember, but like it's the same thing. And it look does especially as a man, I think there's societal pressure, right? Like if it's almost like if you're not dating someone, if you're single, if you don't have a woman on your arm, if you haven't reached these milestones earlier, there's like something wrong with you. But the truth is that it doesn't actually matter because if you're ending up in the same place, that's the goal anyway. Um, and I think it was something that I struggled with a long time just because I wasn't reaching those milestones when all my friends were. But again, now I look back and most of my friends are not married. Most of my friends do not have kids. They're still, looking for somebody. And a lot of them are like very tall, good looking guys, smart, funny. And yet I'm the one married and has kids. So, they're mentioning all the time to me that they're jealous of me. And so I'm okay with the way everything turned out, you know? At the time, it seems like, oh, the world's over, especially the way, again, people view men, right? We need to reach these milestones earlier. But those milestones aren't really what matters. What matters is the quality of person you're with. And again, you could meet all those milestones and then get married super early too. But what if the person you're marrying really isn't a good person and you don't know until it's too late? So I think it all worked out and it will work out for you too.
yeah, I have confidence and faith in that too. Um, but yeah, man, yeah, I think the moral of what you're saying is it doesn't matter how you start the race, it matters how you finish it.
Yeah. When does anyone ever care how someone starts the race? History is written by the victors, right? That's the way the saying goes. Nobody goes, oh, Usain Bolt started this race really well or really poorly. It's just which races did he win, right? I mean, that's really how it is. Michael Phelps, did he win the race or not? Like, that's what matters. That's what anyone cares about. So if you start off slowly, who cares? Did you win the race or not? And ultimately, someday you're going to meet this amazing girl who's really, really sweet to you and loving and, kind and nurturing. And it's just going to be an amazing experience. And that's the only thing that matters is that end relationship. This whole thing that we're doing, even by talking now, it's all a journey. It's the journey of getting there.
Yeah, yeah, it's not about how you get to your destination, it's about reaching the destination.
Yeah. Because different people get there different ways.
Yeah, that's very true. There's multiple ways to what is it?
You
Multiple
know,
ways to fry a fish or
right?
fry a cat.
Yeah, yeah. Fry a cat? You mean skin a cat?
Skinny cat. Yeah, that's what I mean. That is what I mean. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I would say, kind of to go off of that, if you have a disability, whether it's physical, mental, and everyone basically wants love, right? That's kind of the purpose of this, and it's this podcast is about navigating, disability to find love. And I'm one of the success stories, right? Is I found somebody, and we're in love, and it's a very healthy relationship, and it's not look, nothing's perfect. If you were in a completely able-bodied relationship too, where both people were able-bodied, there'd be difficulties too, and there's difficulties in our relationship, and you know my wife knows that there's some things I can't do, and she's okay with it. And I think that's, again, when you talk about you're weeding out the people that aren't meant for you on the front end, you know she's just one of those people that knows, and she's okay with my limitations. And anybody in any relationship is going to need those things too. And you realize in being in a relationship that being in a relationship with a disability is very much the same in most ways as being in a relationship without a disability, because the goals should be the same. Again, your goal should not be to find the most beautiful person ever, you know, although that's nice, but the goal should be a long-term partner needs to be, somebody of high moral character, because that's the only way that the relationship is going to last. There's trust there. There's a bunch of things there, right, that are needed for a long-term relationship. Emotional support and so forth. And it really is important to find that person of high character. So that has nothing to do with the disability. And the reason why that's so important is because, to me, relationships are about giving, like fully, completely. People too often, especially nowadays, are focused on their own needs in a relationship, right? Which is why the divorce rate's so high. But really, what they should be focusing on is giving themselves fully and loving their partner. And their partner should be doing the same with them. And it should be reciprocated. And that's obviously, if it's not, then it's a problem. But if anybody of high, moral character, a good person, if you see that your partner is loving you, like Garrett, if the woman that you're with loves you completely and gives herself to you completely, you as a nice, loving person is going to want to give completely yourself back, right? You're going to want
Yeah.
to reciprocate that love. And then what ends up happening is you're in this nice, loving relationship. If both people are waiting for the other person to satisfy their needs, it's going to be like a loveless marriage. And that's why it's so important, where you need to focus on the other person, not yourself, and meeting the needs of the other person. With my wife, it's important, and I don't always do this, and that's why it's important for me to come back to that, is to think, what does she need? Am I listening to her fully? Am I making her feel seen? Am I making her feel heard? Am I doing what I can to fulfill her needs in a partner? And then, when I do that, I notice more she reciprocates almost instantly. It's like a completely different person, and the relationship dynamic completely changes, because when I'm completely selfless, she's completely selfless. And that's just the key to any relationship, disability or not. But if you as yourself, commit yourself to your partner like that, you're really not going to have many problems in the relationship department anyway, disability or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. One more question, and then I think we can kind of like get into like the closing section, if you will, about the podcast. But
Yeah.
um on that note, like, are there any tips that you would give somebody for first of all, what to do to combat like loneliness and all that stuff that comes with it, and also what to do when you're first starting a relationship, and some of I mean, at least I'm guilty of this, is like I get into like this trance where I'm all into this person, and
Yeah.
I sometimes I forget the logical part of my brain and all those.
Yeah. Well, that's what's important to realize too. Because men were very visual creatures, you know, and women are much, they're much more into their emotional centers and understanding who a person is, and so our attractions are different. It usually takes a woman a lot longer to be, to fall in love with a man than a man to fall in love with a woman. Because we see a beautiful woman and instantly, our emotions get engaged. But that's just not the case with women. They need to really know who you are to really get their emotions invested. And so it's very easy for men to get out ahead of the woman in terms of attraction. But then, it's going to scare that person off when one's way too much ahead of the other. And so the key is just being, when you're starting a relationship, you're just getting to know that person, man or woman, right? Get to know them. Have fun with it. Be nice, relaxed, you know, playful. You know, you're basically just flirting, right? You're flirting, you're not putting too much into it. You're just trying to get to know the other person. And that's what dating really is, right? They call it dating and not like you're not really in a relationship yet. When you're on a first date, when you're on a second date, third date. It's really low stakes. You're getting to know somebody. And that's the way it should be. You don't know anything about them yet. You shouldn't be telling somebody that, she's the most beautiful creature you've ever seen on the face of the earth. Oh, she's, so intelligent. You've never met anyone smarter than her. But you don't know her. So that's where usually, women's red flags will grow up like this guy, is coming off way too strong. And the truth is, if a woman did the same thing to you, you'd think the same thing. You'd be like thinking to yourself, what is she talking about? Like, she's just blowing smoke. She doesn't even know me. Because it's true, you don't know somebody. That's the whole point of dating. You're going in there with an open mind, trying to, learn about somebody. And, that's the way I approach dating. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But, I found the right one for me. And when I was with uh, my now wife on our first date, it felt like a very natural connection. Like it felt like we had known each other for like a really long time. Like conversation just flowed. The chemistry was palpable, but also like I still didn't think too far ahead. I was just trying to enjoy her and get to know her. Right. I met her on a dating app. I met her on Coffee Meets Bagel, and I didn't know anything about her, and that's okay. You're just getting to know the person. Um, don't don't try to picture your life with them. You're just getting to know them. So just take things a day at a time is what I would say. Slow your roll, especially for men when it comes to women, because they can get out in front there because we're so visually oriented. Women need a longer time. They need wooing, right? You need to show them that you actually are worth getting emotionally invested in. So I would say that for anyone at the beginning of a relationship, that it's very important to get to know that person and to let things develop naturally.
Right. That's good advice even for myself.
Yeah,
Who sometimes gets a little ahead of myself and gets
like
a little.
ever in human history.
Yep, that's true. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dan, and hopefully this will be um know that you're welcome back anytime you're
Yeah, of course.
available. Love to have your feedback and your contribution, and you're still gonna be learning, even in your experiences in life. So you still have more nuggets of wisdom, more golden nuggets of wisdom to
Yeah.
share with us. I'm so
Well,
excited.
anytime you want me on, I'm a friend, so I'm here. I'm here to give my wisdom, and hopefully it helps some people.
Yeah,
Um,
me too, me too. And if you guys want to get in touch with Dan, just let me know and I will talk to Dan. Dan's a busy guy. He doesn't want to get, bombarded with people. So I'll be the gatekeeper to him.
but if anyone has any advice about anything, it doesn't even have to be about dating. Although I feel pretty confident about my dating advice. But if anyone has any advice for that or medicine or anything, navigating that with a disability can be challenging too, or just any curiosity about anything, just reach out to Garrett. He'll give you my email, and I'm more than happy to talk to you and give whatever advice you need. So please feel free.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. And remember, everybody, love does have the power to save the world. I really, really believe that. So until next time, remember that love has the power to save the world, and peace out.